Hi there. Welcome to the next stage of your learning journey. Congratulations on completing your first course. You learned about the field of cloud security and the roles and responsibilities of a cloud security professional. You also learned about cloud fundamentals and important techniques and tools that you can use in a cloud security role. In this course, you'll learn about risk management strategies that can be used to secure the cloud. You'll also be introduced to critical tools, regulations, and industry standards. You're on your way to knowing more about how to be a cloud security professional. This section's focus is to identify risk management strategies and frameworks and review regulations and security controls. You'll learn how to use these regulations and controls as a cloud security professional to secure cloud environments and meet compliance standards. Let me introduce myself. My name's Preston. I work as a security engineer at Google. This means that I investigate and develop solutions for identifying unauthorized activity in customer environments. I first learned about computer security investigations while working as a software engineer at a former job. At the time, we had unauthorized activity in our enterprise environment, so we hired consultants to perform forensic investigations to identify the who, what, when, and how. This began my broader understanding of offensive and defensive computer security and the necessary components of a cybersecurity investigation. One of the coolest parts of being a cloud cybersecurity professional is that you'll always be learning new things and growing because of it. We'll start with a general overview of security domains, policies, risks, controls, and compliance. You'll explore the relationship between the three areas of compliance: people, process, and technology. You'll even get a chance to practice implementing security controls based on scenarios. Next, you'll explore risk management frameworks, laws, regulations, and industry standards. You'll also compare and contrast data privacy and data protection. Then, you'll get a comprehensive overview of the compliance lifecycle. You'll explore controls and control mapping, assessments and auditing, negative organizational impacts of noncompliance, and policy as code, or PAC, and infrastructure as code, or IAC. Finally, you'll build on your knowledge of risk and vulnerability frameworks to dive deeper into cloud security posture management, or CSPM, for a multi-cloud system. You'll also learn about key cloud tools and their uses for risk and compliance, and about cloud organizational policies. Learning risk management and how to secure your cloud will prepare you for some of the most important day-to-day aspects in your role. Don't forget, I'm here to help you every step of the way. You can work at your own pace, so review videos and resources anytime you need to. You've got this. By the end of this course, you'll know how to confidently use proven risk management to secure cloud assets. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Preston. I'm a security engineer with Google. I split my time between performing forensic investigations of potentially unauthorized activity in customer environments and developing software solutions to improve the investigation workflows for security analysts. My journey to computer security happened by accident. I began my career in software development after graduation. I disliked nearly every aspect of the job and quickly started to panic. I was interested in red teaming and malicious software analysis. As I dug deeper into understanding how malicious software was written and used, I found a new role as a consultant doing incident response for companies who had breaches. I spent several years responding to and mitigating threats for breached companies. Eventually, I moved back into software development role with a better understanding of the process and a better grasp of what capabilities the software project required to serve the frontline defenders. Finding a mentor was a huge help and enabled my continued growth early on. Having someone judgment-free be a resource for what feels like dumb questions can be very helpful. Nobody knows everything. It's a journey that never ends. Lastly, recognize that continuous learning is critical. The field is constantly evolving. Attackers continuously change tactics, which means attempting to always stay ahead is a never-ending endeavor. While daunting, it also provides a new and fresh perspective of the day-to-day work. It's great to have you here. In this section, you'll get an introduction to security domains, risks, controls, and the different areas of compliance. First, you'll learn about security domains and how they relate to compliance. You'll also analyze how compliance differs from security. Then, you'll learn about risks and controls and how they relate to compliance. Next, you'll explore the three aspects of compliance, which include people, process, and technology, and then get an overview of Google Cloud Security Command Center. By the end of this section, you'll learn how to implement cloud security controls. I've got lots to share with you. Let's move on. In your role as a cloud security professional, you'll need to be aware of your organization's cloud security domains. These domains can help you with resource planning, training, and compliance, which are key to securing the business. In this video, we'll discuss domains and how they can help you secure assets in the cloud environment. The International Information Systems Security Certification Consortium, or ISC², is a nonprofit organization specializing in training and certifications for cybersecurity professionals. For ISC squared, a security domain is a collection of tightly coupled security practices that address a specific security discipline. For example, domains help to ensure that you have the right processes, skills, and tooling in application development so that you can properly and securely write and run code. There are 6 security domains or categories identified by the ISC squared certification for cloud security professionals, or CCSP. Domain 1 focuses on cloud concepts, architecture, and design. Domain 2 consists of cloud data security. Domain 3 addresses cloud platform and infrastructure security. Domain 4 covers cloud application security. Domain 5 investigates cloud security operations. And lastly, Domain 6 explores legal, risk, and compliance. It's important to keep in mind that these domains have no clear boundaries. In other words, tasks completed in one domain can also be relevant in other domains. For example, there are controls in each domain that deal with things like authentication and access control. Security leaders use domains to ensure that there are no gaps or oversights in an area of security. In your role as a cloud security professional, domains can help you choose your discipline and your job skill focus. For example, you might choose to work in the cloud security operations domain. Knowing the skills and work that make up that domain would help you plan a development path to build relevant skills and experiences on your career journey. Let's explore different domains. The cloud concepts, architecture, and design domain focuses on high-level security that aligns with your organization's objectives. In the same way that an architect plans and designs for a house based on specifications, this domain is responsible for ensuring that the security designs and services will meet the business needs of that organization. Next, the cloud data security domain focuses on security of data within the cloud environment. It includes all procedures used in designing and implementing encryption, access controls, data loss, prevention, and tokenization techniques to ensure the confidentiality and integrity of data. Identifying and classifying data is critical to this domain. Controls are matched according to the value and sensitivity of data, as well as relevant laws and regulations. This domain is like the plumbing of the cloud environment. It determines how communication will happen and how data will move into and out of the systems under control, like water running through pipes into and out of a building. The cloud platform and infrastructure security domain addresses the virtual and physical security threats to cloud infrastructure, including cloud infrastructure connections, cybersecurity, and the implementation of audit tools. People working in this domain could be compared to builders laying a good foundation for the rest of the structure that will be built. The cloud application security domain focuses on how applications for the cloud environment should be built, released, and maintained. This might include investigating all cloud computing application security challenges, including identity and access management, developing secure software, threat modeling, and validating software security through testing. This domain could be compared to a carpenter that uses raw materials to build sound structures to secure the inside and outside of the house from internal and external threats. The cloud security operations domain covers how to securely operate the designed, built, and deployed environment, including how to respond to events and restore the environment to a secure state. This domain addresses issues that arise from using cloud computing services. It focuses on responding to and resolving any issues that may impact the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of applications running in the cloud. This may include attacks, configuration mistakes, or even cloud provider outages. This domain could be compared to the person that is responsible for installing final safety features like alarm systems and smoke detectors after a building is built. People in this domain focus on safety and alerts once the cloud structure has been built. Finally, the legal, risk, and compliance domain focuses on the legal and regulatory implications of cloud-based applications. It explores how cloud computing influences business risk management and how cloud security controls are audited. This domain is like an inspector that makes sure everything in a building complies with standards and regulations. That was a lot of domains. Understanding each of these domains will help you be a more well-rounded and effective security professional and possibly find the right domain fit for your next role in cloud security. Now that you know about security domains and what they do, you will be able to discuss and analyze the different domains within the cloud environment. Keeping things safe means to pay attention to the details and make sure to operate using sets of rules. As a cloud security professional, security and compliance will be a key aspect of your job. While these two topics are related, it's important for you to understand their differences. In this video, we'll explore how you can use security and compliance together to help keep your systems safe. It's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. First, let's discuss security. Security includes systems and controls that protect an organization's assets from threats. security ensures confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the organization's services. These threats can happen through a breach, leak, or cyber attack. Methods to ensure security include mitigate identified threats with different types of controls, like firewalls, strong password management tools, and a multi-factor authentication. Implement controls designed to prevent threat actors from impacting your organization's business functions, provide guidelines for responding to a breach in a worst-case scenario, and require a cloud security team to protect a system by threat modeling and risk assessment. While security protects an organization, compliance is the process of adhering to internal and external standards and government regulations. These can include the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, the National Institute for Standards in Technology known as NIST, or federal law like the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA. To be compliant, an organization must provide evidence that they are following the stated objective, like one of the standards, rules, regulations, or laws that apply to their business. Let's find out how business can address both security and compliance in an example scenario. Imagine that a retail store is required by the head office to install employee fingerprint authentication for things like clocking in, accessing areas of the store, and using the point-of-sale system. Requiring fingerprint authentication is security. It prevents unauthorized access. Providing evidence that the store is using fingerprint authorization correctly to the head office and regulatory bodies is compliance. Compliance standards are not unique to a single organization. The standards measure security protocols at a given point in time or over a specific period of time for any organization. As in the earlier scenario, an organization needs to provide evidence that they meet the required standards, rules, or regulations. There are many positive outcomes of compliance. Proper compliance builds trust within and between organizations. For compliance, there are a set of prescribed controls and practices that help to ensure the required minimum level of security is in place. Compliance shows stakeholders and users that a system meets the required level of security without requiring them to go through the difficult process of verifying for themselves. Compliance also gives a potential business partner or user confidence that an organization will protect their information. But being compliant doesn't mean that all assets are secure or that you have an effective security system. Compliance set a minimum standard for security and establishes a common ground for organizations. Compliance might require a certain type of encryption to meet a security standard. This might influence the controls an organization chooses. For example, the organization might want to use stricter controls than compliance requires because of the specific security threats they have to deal with. Compliance helps an organization be more secure with measures that provide a set of clear frameworks, checklists, and best practices. For example, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, or CSF, is a set of guidelines and best practices to help organizations build and improve their cybersecurity posture. The NIST CSF is a compliance framework that can easily be adapted across industries to create strong security programs. Security and compliance are complementary processes. A strong security system makes it easier for an organization to meet compliance standards because most of the necessary controls are already in place. As a cloud security professional, you'll not only be able to differentiate between security and compliance, but you'll also use them to strengthen each other. This will better prepare you to manage risk in the cloud.
Cloud's a great democratizer of talent, so anybody can go to work straight away in the cloud, get access to a large array of technology that's a lot easier to use than it used to be. And so a lot more people can have a lot more skills and capability by building on the cloud. Hi, I'm Phil. I'm Chief Information Security Officer at Google Cloud. The role of a Chief Information Security Officer is really to be in charge of many different types of risks, whether it's security, privacy, compliance. It's mostly internal facing, making sure what we build for our customers is secure and compliant, but also a large part of it is working with our customers, helping them build on our platform in secure ways. I started in the 1990s in cybersecurity, and like a lot of people of my generation, we kind of stumbled into doing this, so it was not something I set out to do. I was a software engineer building many different types of systems, ultimately started developing secure systems at the beginning of the internet and the beginning of a lot of critical uses of the internet, and I stayed doing that ever since. Probably the main thing about why I kind of find cybersecurity exciting is it's just the ability to just work across everything a company does. And so every single day is different because you're involved in different product launches, you're involved in different geopolitical situations, you're involved in new technologies. And so it's just the breadth and diversity of what we do that's really exciting. When you think about cybersecurity in the context of cloud, it's really an opportunity to get security right. So what we've done in the cloud is we've designed security so that it's built in, not bolted on after the fact. And for many organizations that move to the cloud, it's their first opportunity to get security right because we've architected it in. And I think that's a tremendous moment of transformation for many organizations. The great thing about cloud technology is it permits businesses of all sizes to be able to grow. A small startup business can tap into the cloud and get the scale of capability that was previously only available to major corporations. And that's a tremendous competitive edge for those companies. So cloud's going to keep evolving. Again, every customer that comes onto cloud, every organization that comes onto cloud has new ideas about what they want cloud to be. And a cloud provider, we're constantly taking that feedback, building new technologies, field testing it with customers, and they give us even more feedback. So it's like a great flywheel that's propelling the innovation forward. In cybersecurity, we really look for people who can collaborate in teams, maintain curiosity, and deliver on that mission of protecting our customers. If you want to get started in a career in cybersecurity, I would say the important and perhaps obvious thing is just to take that first step. So any of us that have been in this field a long time, at one point we knew nothing about it and we took that first step, watching that first YouTube video, taking that first certificate, taking that first class, downloading that first toolkit and playing around with things. The important thing is to just take the first step and then the next one and the next one, and don't get overwhelmed. Just take those things one step at a time.
It's always better to prepare for a threat than to respond to one. Implementing security controls to reduce risk will be an important part of your role as a cloud security professional. Security controls are also a key part of both security and compliance. In this video, you'll learn how security controls can help you secure your organization's assets so you can meet compliance standards. A security control is a safeguard designed to reduce specific security risks. Security risk is the total of both the likelihood and the impact of threats on assets. As a cloud security professional, reducing the security risks in an organization means that you are trying to either reduce the impact from the threat or reduce the likelihood of that threat. For example, if you encrypt data, you reduce the impact of a breach because the attacker cannot see the data without the key. You might also use two-factor authentication in order to reduce the likelihood of a threat actor accessing a network or system should the threat actor steal a password and try to use it to impersonate a user. Next up, we'll explain how you can also use combinations of controls to reduce risk by addressing impact and likelihood of an attack. Cloud security controls are measures that safeguard cloud environments from threats and minimize the effects of harmful attacks. Security controls are a central element in any cloud computing strategy. CSP-offered cloud security control measures may be part of a shared responsibility or a shared fate agreement with the CSP and the organization using its services. The CSP automatically provides some controls for their customers, such as physical security, secure by design practices in software development, and strong security defaults on services. The CSP also makes some controls available as considerations for businesses' needs. An example of this is customer-managed encryption keys. Other controls the CSP offers can be those measures that are customer-inherited and customer-modifiable. These measures help ensure a consistent protection for data and workloads. To demonstrate compliance as a cloud security professional, you must prove that the required security controls are in place. To achieve compliance, you can make use of some built-in and third-party cloud security tools and run reports on workloads. Now that you know more about implementing security controls to protect assets and meet compliance standards, you can be better prepared for your role in security in the cloud. Imagine you're going rock climbing. Your plan is to have fun, but you also know there are risks involved. To keep yourself safe, you pack all the safety gear you can, like a harness, a helmet, ropes, and hooks. Just as in climbing, risk management also needs proper safety measures. As a cloud security professional, you'll be responsible for protecting vulnerable assets. This means you'll need to understand risk and know how to reduce it to meet your security and compliance standards. In this video, we'll explore risk and how it relates to compliance. First, let's review risk. Risk is the measure of how much a threat impacts the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of an asset. Common examples of risk include data loss, data leakage, and data corruption. Data loss happens when data is deleted without authorization due to either a mistake by an authorized user or an intentional action by a threat actor, resulting in a breach in availability of data. Data leakage happens when sensitive data is handled improperly or when threat actors, entities imposing a threat, get access, resulting in a breach of confidentiality and sharing with other unauthorized users. And data corruption happens when data is either changed because of an unauthorized user or a system malfunction, resulting in a breach of quality or trustworthiness of data. Now that we reviewed risk, let's explore its relationship with threat, vulnerability, likelihood, and impact. Remember, a threat is any situation or circumstance that can negatively impact assets. Vulnerabilities are weaknesses that can be exploited by threat actors. Likelihood is the probability that a vulnerability will be exploited by a threat actor and includes the extent of the impact of the threat. For example, if an organization has a poorly configured access management system, a lot of employees may have access to more sensitive corporate data than they need to do their job. This means there's a likelihood that a threat actor could compromise employees' accounts, which could lead to a major data breach. One method of determining the level of risk is to rank the likelihood of an attack and the severity of the impact or outcome. This can help to determine if the level of risk is low, medium, or high. Analyzing risks, their likelihood, and impact will help you decide the best controls to put in place. As a cloud security professional, you'll be responsible for reducing risk to an acceptable level, called the risk appetite, for your organization's cloud assets. The risk appetite is the amount of risk an organization is willing to take and still meet organizational needs. It could also be described as the maximum amount of residual risk an organization will accept after controls and other measures have been put in place. Determining the level of risk will help you to determine the risk appetite. So how does risk relate to compliance? Compliance certification is proof that you meet established industry regulations and standards to protect your organization from risks. Compliance proves that an organization is following the rules. A lot of compliance certifications are renewed regularly or whenever a new law or regulation version is published, or when security controls of a system have changed significantly. Compliance certifications focus on gathering evidence that security controls are in place at or over a specific time period specified in the audit protocol. Meeting compliance requirements is a risk mitigation activity, but risk management doesn't stop at compliance alone. To more fully handle risk management, a security team needs to also assess security systems for vulnerability often. Security is an ongoing, real-time evaluation of the threat landscape and the state of controls to address those threats. Security also includes vulnerability scanning, control health monitoring, and log reviews. Now that you know more about the relationship between risks, threats, vulnerabilities, likelihood, and impact, you can be better prepared to protect vulnerable assets, just like you would plan to protect yourself if you were to go on a rock climbing trip. Planning for potential risk factors is a valuable skill that will help you be a more effective cloud security professional. Let's start off this video with an on-the-job example you might have as a cloud security professional at a large university. The university just invested in a monitoring tool to protect student records your security team is storing in the cloud. The team needs to define a clear process for using the tool and understanding the reports. This way, the team will make the best use of the new technology, using it correctly and efficiently. You've already learned about how people, processes, and technology play a part in the software supply chain. In this video, we'll explore how having an effective relationship with people, process, and technology can help an organization maintain compliance. The People, Process, Technology, or PPT framework was originally created for businesses in the 1960s to improve the efficiency of their employees and tools. Today, it's used for information technology management. To be compliant, an organization must have strong processes in place to ensure that they're using technology in the most effective way. The PPT framework can help organizations meet their security and compliance goals. In the PPT framework, each piece reinforces the other. Technology is most effective when supported by strong processes and talented people. And with the right processes in place, technology can help people be more effective or efficient when completing specific tasks. Let's explore the three different components of the PPT framework and find out how each fit in with the university example I shared above. People include staff, users, and decision makers that follow processes to use technology safely and effectively. To build a strong culture of compliance, it's important to educate users and provide them with procedures. At the university, the cloud security team can train staff and provide resources that explain protocols. The team can also create processes to ensure protocols are followed. Processes include how people should use new technology and how it should be created or adapted. Examples of effective processes include enforcing two-factor authentication, mandatory software updates, removing access rights from users who no longer need them, and implementing protocols for running scans and analyzing reports. At the university, The cloud security team can create a process to make sure staff know to complete scans, generate reports, and take the correct actions based on the reports. Technology not only helps to ensure compliance, it should also meet the organization's needs. At the university, the security team adopts a monitoring tool to help meet compliance requirements. This technology will also help protect student and faculty records, along with other sensitive information. Balancing and adjusting PPT will be an important part of your job as a cloud security professional. By understanding the relationship between people, process, and technology, you can help your organization more effectively use tools and technology. You can also ensure that your organization meets their security and compliance standards. It would be very difficult for cloud security teams to meet all of their organization compliance and security standards manually. This is where cloud technology can help make so many day-to-day tasks that all need to get done more manageable and effective. And with this technology, a security team's work just got a little lighter. In this video, we'll explore how Google Cloud Security Command Center can provide teams assistance to maintain and manage their security posture and compliance. Let's get started. Security Command Center is Google Cloud's centralized vulnerability and threat reporting service. It evaluates an organization's security and data attack surface, provides asset inventory and discovery, and identifies misconfigurations, vulnerabilities, and threats. Some benefits of Security Command Center include improving security posture, detecting and uncovering threats, and assessing and managing risk. Security Command Center can improve security posture by identifying security misconfigurations and vulnerabilities in your Google Cloud environment and helps resolve them with actionable recommendations. It can detect and uncover threats with specialized detectors built into the Google Cloud infrastructure. And it can assess and manage risk using attack path simulation to discover and shut down possible pathways that threat actors can use to access and compromise cloud resources. The key features of Security Command Center are threat prevention, threat detection, and attack path simulation. First is threat prevention. Threat prevention determines whether an organization's Google Cloud has the expected security posture. Threat prevention can also uncover misconfigurations and find common web application vulnerabilities to quickly resolve issues with best practices. Second is threat detection. Threat detection protects an organization's resources by detecting threats to cloud services like Google Compute Engine, Google Kubernetes Engine, BigQuery, Cloud SQL, and more. Third is attack path simulation. Attack path simulation helps pinpoint where and how an organization's Google Cloud environment could be attacked. This simulation can provide an organization a way to analyze vulnerable paths to valued resources and prioritize the right preventative security controls. Google Security Command Center is just one of several tools you might find in your role on a cloud security team. The right tools for an organization's need will help reduce risk and maintain compliance in the cloud. Cloud computing and security controls will differ for an organization. Since cloud computing is different from an on-premises deployment, cloud security controls will also differ. In this video, we'll review cloud security controls and how to determine which controls should be implemented to reduce risk. Remember, cloud security controls are measures that safeguard cloud environments from threats by reducing the likelihood and impact of harmful attacks. There are three types of cybersecurity controls: technical, administrative, and physical. Technical controls include hardware and software used to protect assets. Administrative controls include policies, procedures, and guidelines put into place to protect assets. Physical controls include any concrete means of preventing or detecting unauthorized access to facilities, systems, or assets, like gates and locks or keycards to enter a building. As a cloud security professional, when you properly implement security controls, you help safeguard cloud environments from vulnerabilities, minimize the effects of harmful attacks, meet and maintain your organization's compliance goals. Security controls are a central element of any cloud computing strategy. So how do you decide which controls to use and when? As you may recall, threat modeling is the process of identifying assets, their vulnerabilities, and how each is exposed to threats. Here's a pro tip. Conduct a threat model to identify the right controls for the threats your organization faces. This will help the cloud security team save time and money. If a threat is related to a low probability or a low impact risk, then the organization can accept the risk, or it can be transferred instead of mitigated by a control. An organization can transfer risk by buying a cyber insurance policy that helps cover this risk, or transferring the risk to the user in the terms of service agreement. For threat modeling, you can use an existing threat model methodology to identify threats across common threat categories. Then, you can select controls to address the threats that you've identified. For example, if you identify an attack risk that threatens proper authentication in your threat model, you might choose a control like second-factor authentication using a key to help prevent the attack. After applying controls based on the threat model and standards and regulations, there may be some remaining risk or residual risk. Residual risk can be accepted or reduced. If the team accepts any residual risk that remains, there is a possibility that the business might fail to meet necessary compliance with the required standard or regulation. If an organization is unable to show they are compliant, they risk fines and civil and criminal penalties. The organization might also be unable to sign contracts with partners or customers that require standards or regulations. By threat modeling and checking that you've met compliance control standards, you can implement the necessary controls to reduce risk to an acceptable level. A critical part of your job as a cloud security professional will be implementing security controls to reduce risk and maintain compliance. There are many choices for controls, so it'll be important for you to think of your organization's needs and potential risks when choosing and implementing them. In this video, we'll give you some steps you can follow to implement security controls and develop an implementation plan so you can be successful in your role. So let's get started with the steps to implement security controls. The first step is to identify controls. It's helpful to start with threat modeling to identify the controls you should implement. That way, you can identify a specific threat and choose the best control to eliminate it or reduce the risk. Imagine that you've identified a potential account spoofing threat, which is where a threat actor disguises their identity. So you decide to implement a second-factor authentication using a physical security key as a control to mitigate the risk of spoofing. The second step to implement security controls is to develop the implementation plan. During this step, consider whether the entire organization needs a physical security key or if only certain groups like executives, remote workers, or highly privileged accounts need security keys. Since the majority of your organization works remotely and needs to access sensitive data, your team determines that physical keys should be required across the organization, including contractors and third-party vendors. Next, you and your team will need to develop policies and procedures for implementing the control. It's also important that employees and contractors are aware of how to get and use a security key and what is expected of them. So, your team will need to develop policies around implementing this control. Also, be sure that everyone knows how to reach the appropriate people in case of questions, clarifications, or incidents. You'll also need to ensure that you have the budget to buy all the keys. The third step to implement security controls is to accurately test and validate the security controls your team deployed. This step is important to truly determine whether an environment is secure. To test and validate a physical security key, you can use reports to measure and track your users' enrollment and two-step verification with a security key. That way, you can check users' enrollment status, the number of security keys, and enforcement status. Enforcement status refers to how and if the two-step verification is being enforced within an organization. Each user can also verify they can sign in with their own key. After you've implemented and tested each control, continue to the fourth step, monitor and maintain the control's effectiveness. Your team will also make adjustments as necessary. The fifth and final step to implement security controls is to record the process in the team's security plan document. These actions include the security control selection and implementation processes. This document is useful because it will explain the why and the how for implementing security controls. This documentation is also essential for communicating how controls relate to your organizational risk management and compliance goals. Implementing controls is an ongoing process and an exciting part of being a cloud security professional. In your role, you'll continually strategize to mitigate threats and work with people throughout your organization to ensure proper deployment and use of controls. Congratulations on completing this section. Throughout your journey, you learned a lot about frameworks, security domains, and risk and security controls in relation to compliance. You started by learning about security domains and policies and how they relate to compliance. You also analyzed how compliance differs from security. Then you learned more about risk and controls and how they relate to compliance. Next, you explored the three aspects of compliance, including people, process, and technology. You also got an overview of Google Cloud Security Command Center. Finally, you learned more about cloud security controls and how to implement them. You've accomplished so much already. Keep up the great work. Welcome. In this section, you'll learn about risk management frameworks, regulations, and industry standards for cloud computing. This section covers lots of tools and topics that will be important in various security roles. You'll learn about laws and regulations for the cloud and the industry standards that must be applied and upheld. You'll also find out about different frameworks developed by respected organizations and how to choose the right framework based on the organizational needs. It's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. First, you'll learn risk management frameworks. You'll get an introduction to common frameworks like NIST CSF and ISO 27001, and learn how to analyze the similarities and differences between common frameworks. After that, you'll learn about industry regulations and laws for data privacy and protection. Let's get started.
I was a special agent in the Federal Bureau of Investigation for 22 years. It was during that time in the FBI where I was assigned an investigation that included a cybersecurity element to it, and that's what I would call my pivot moment. That really was the deciding factor for me. I need to invest time, cycles, develop my intelligence on this, take courses, do whatever I need to do in order to get smart on it. My name is M.K. Palmore. I'm a director in the office of the CISO for Google Cloud. My team is responsible for helping customers onboard safely and securely into the cloud. I'm a child of the 80s, and for those of us in Gen X that come from that generation, everything in the 80s was really about the opening of the door to all things computers. Even families that, like mine, that were socially and economically disadvantaged, we even had opportunities to avail ourselves of computers and computing technology. And so this interest in computing and what it might evolve into, I think the seeds were planted. Cybersecurity is important in a cloud-first world because cybersecurity is the number one topic for business enterprise risk. I made a pointed decision on my own to change my career path and begin investing in the opportunity to learn and become educated in cybersecurity. The skill that I think is most important for cybersecurity practitioners is a willingness to understand that you don't know everything. I'm a huge supporter of certificate programs, certifications in the industry, because that is the pathway that I took in order to get educated. I feel that the more training that we can make available to a wider audience to give folks that opportunity to get educated in this field, I just think the better off we're all going to be. Cloud is probably the most exciting industry to be in right now because the possibilities, I think, are endless. The benefits of cloud to business, to individuals, to society overall, I think that trajectory is still on an upward arc. So when you combine cloud with cybersecurity, and you think about it in terms of the availability of jobs in the job market, this is a market that will continue to expand for years to come.
As a cloud security professional, you'll usually have to work with an organization's risk management tools to identify and manage possible threats. These tools are usually summarized in an organization's risk management program, which is often informed by a framework, standard, or regulation. In this video, you'll learn about some of the common frameworks and their importance for an organization's security. It's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. A risk management framework is a set of practices, processes, and technologies that enable an organization to identify, assess, analyze, and manage risk within an organization. Frameworks are a tool for risk management. Their goal is to reduce risks to an acceptable level and improve security posture. Frameworks identify common goals around cloud security and provide the structure and common language needed to maintain them. Here are some examples of industry standard frameworks. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, better known as NIST, Cybersecurity Framework, the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO, 27001, and System and Organization Controls 2, referred to as SOC 2. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework, or CSF, is a voluntary framework that outlines a risk-based approach for governing security, privacy, and a cyber supply chain risk management. The NIST CSF helps organizations to better understand, manage, and reduce their cybersecurity risk and protect their networks and data. The CSF provides an outline of best practices to help an organization decide where to focus their time and money for cybersecurity protection. Another framework you might work with is based on ISO 27001, which is an international certification that focuses on information security management systems. ISO 27001 is a combination of standards included in other frameworks, and its goal is to protect three main aspects of information: confidentiality, only authorized persons have the right to access information; integrity, only authorized persons can change the information; and availability, the information must be accessible to authorized persons whenever it is needed. The last risk management framework that's commonly used in cloud security is the SOC 2 framework. The SOC 2 framework was developed by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, or AICPA, and leverages the AICPA's trust services criteria to build trust and confidence for clients about a third-party service provider's system. The trust services criteria are used to evaluate controls relevant to security, availability, and processing integrity of the system that a third-party service organization uses to process clients' data and the confidentiality and privacy of the information the system processes. As a cloud security professional, you'll usually have to work with different security frameworks, so learning about the more common ones and their goals is very important. The more you know, the more you can safeguard a business network and data. Now that you're familiar with the most widely used frameworks, you can continue to build your knowledge as you grow your career in cloud security. You probably wouldn't share personal details about yourself with just anyone, especially with threat actors. As a cloud security professional, part of your job is to protect personal information from being accessed by unauthorized users. In this video, we'll discuss data protection and privacy, and how to prevent data from being used in ways that can cause a security incident, like a data breach. It's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. Data privacy focuses on an individual's rights to be in control of how and when their data is accessed and used. It includes the rights to be accurately represented by the information, to be informed about its use, to refuse its use for secondary purposes, and to erase or remove information when they choose. Personal information includes things like one's name, location, contact information, or online or real-world behavior. Just like you may exclude people from a private conversation, a lot of online users want to control or prevent certain types of personal data collection and use. For example, imagine that you are using an app to make an appointment on your smartphone. If you did not disable location services on your smartphone, the app might ask for your location to suggest the closest office to schedule your appointment. You can choose to decline the app's access to your exact location. This is an example of data privacy. You can also decline to accept cookies when visiting a website, as another example. When you decline or turn off cookies, you're refusing to share personal information about how you interact with websites. There are laws and regulations that have been put into place to protect the privacy rights of users. Examples of these laws include General Data Protection Regulations, or GDPR in Europe, and the California Consumer Privacy Rights Act, also known as CPRA. GDPR and CPRA put laws in place that grant consumers, as data subjects, certain rights regarding the use of their personal information. An organization must take measures to protect the data that they gather to meet data privacy obligations. This is called data protection. Data protection also covers protection of other data, like intellectual property, or IP. IP might include anything from a musical composition to an architectural design that the creator may copyright, trademark, etc. Data protection helps enforce policies and regulations, prevent unauthorized access, focus on keeping information safe from attackers, ensure that data is protected from unauthorized intervention and access, safeguard collected data, and is closely tied to security controls. An organization can protect data by putting controls in place that prevent unauthorized access and keep data and information safe from attackers. To protect data, an organization could ensure that they have good authorization and access control for the data and the systems that house the data, and then they could use encryption key to conceal data. They would also want to make sure that good key management policies are in place. In this video, you learn that data protection and privacy are important parts of risk management. You also learn that there are laws and regulations that ensure data protection and the right to data privacy. Staying up to date with data privacy and protection standards will help you and your organization to mitigate risk, meet compliance standards, and protect users. Remember, when a user's privacy is safe, they can safely go about their business. In this video, we're going to focus on a specific framework developed by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, using a practical workplace scenario. It's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. First, it's important to know that the NIST privacy framework was developed to help improve privacy risk management for an organization's data. It is an international framework that strives to create a common language for international cooperation on privacy. The NIST privacy framework has three parts: core, profiles, and implementation tiers. First, the core is a set of privacy protection activities and desired outcomes that allows for communicating prioritized privacy protection activities and outcomes across the organization. Second, when using the framework, an organization has to develop one or more profiles for the privacy outcomes it wants to achieve. Profiles represent the privacy outcomes the organization aims to achieve. To develop a profile, an organization will review the functions, categories, and subcategories of the framework and decide which functions are the most important to focus on. This will help them achieve their desired privacy outcomes based on business needs. And third, implementation tiers provide context on how an organization views privacy risk and indicates if the organization has adequate processes and resources in place to manage that risk. Now that you know the tiers of the framework, let's examine a workplace scenario that demonstrates why the NIST framework is an essential tool. In this scenario, a large retail organization is in the early stages of developing an application for their home appliances. They want to create an application that will allow consumers to register their devices for warranties and updates, access information about their usage history, and enable universal remote control use for multiple products. The organization requires stakeholder approvals before a product can be released to consumers. Plus, the organization must comply with domestic and international privacy laws and regulations. To help keep their information secure, the organization implements the NIST framework to develop their application. Security frameworks are also useful tools that can help organizations meet their privacy obligations with the right selection of security controls and data protection practices. The organization requires stakeholder approvals before a product can be released to consumers. Plus, the organization must comply with domestic and international privacy laws and regulations. To help keep their information secure, the organization implements the NIST framework to develop their application. Security frameworks are also useful tools that can help organizations meet their privacy obligations with the right selection of security controls and data protection practices. Since security frameworks might have different guidelines for what is considered a risk and how to manage it, your organization might use multiple guidelines and frameworks simultaneously to keep all their data secure. For example, there are overlaps in cybersecurity and privacy risks. Cybersecurity risks arise from an unauthorized activity related to the loss of confidentiality, integrity, or availability of a system or information asset. The NIST Cybersecurity Framework is a tool that a cloud security team can use for data protection. On the other hand, privacy risks arise from authorized activity. For example, a food delivery app may be gathering too much data on its users, which can present a privacy issue. A security team can use the NIST Cybersecurity Framework and the Privacy Framework together as a tool to achieve data security. They work together because the Privacy Framework allows the security team to ask questions about the purposes for data collection and the appropriate retention of the data. The Security Framework then helps pick the right controls for the protection of the data that the app collects and retains. Now that you know more about how to apply the NIST framework, you can start learning about different frameworks and practice applying them to different scenarios. Just like a real cloud in the sky, the cloud that stores data is all over the world. With the widespread use of cloud technology in almost every industry and sector, laws and regulations have been developed and updated to help ensure that data in the cloud is safe and that users are protected. In previous videos, we discussed how frameworks are tools that can help you follow the regulations or laws for your industry. In this video, we'll discuss some of these common laws and regulations like FedRAMP, HIPAA, GDPR, and CPRA. It's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. The Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, or FedRAMP, is a government-wide program that provides a consistent approach to security assessment, authorization, and continuous monitoring for cloud products and services in the United States. FedRAMP's purpose is to ensure compliance of third-party cloud services for government users handling sensitive data. All federal government agencies and non-federal government organizations providing services to the federal government in the United States are able to leverage additional security provided by FedRAMP, and some agencies or organizations may be required to use FedRAMP authorized cloud services if they are handling particularly sensitive data, like personal identifiable information, or PII, and protected health information, or PHI. Another important law is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, a U.S. federal law for healthcare organizations. HIPAA includes rules that address the use of standardized electronic insurance transactions, privacy, and security. The privacy rule focuses on the use and sharing of all PHI by what are known as covered entities. Covered entities include healthcare providers, healthcare plans, healthcare clearinghouses, and their healthcare business associates. The security rule protects a subset of information covered by the privacy rule. This subset is all identifiable health information a covered entity creates, receives, maintains, or transmits in electronic form only. This information is called Electronic Protected Health Information, or ePHI. The General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, includes regulations that protect personal data and privacy of the residents of the European Union, or EU. All member states of the EU and international organizations handling EU resident data are obliged to follow the regulations set out by the GDPR. These regulations consist of a broad set of rules that require businesses to protect the personal data and privacy of EU residents for transactions that occur within EU member states. The GDPR also regulates the exportation of personal data outside the EU. The California Privacy Rights Act, or CPRA, is a consumer privacy law in the state of California intended to protect consumers. It enables consumers to know about, delete, or opt out of personal data that is gathered. There are a lot of laws and regulations to be mindful of, and they might seem ethereal like clouds in the sky, but they're important and useful measures that protect users and businesses. As a cloud security professional, you'll need to stay up to date with the laws and regulations for your industry and your geography's governing bodies. Everybody loves getting things done more efficiently and in less time. As a cloud security professional, you'll need to know how to apply industry-specific standards, rules, and requirements using tools and frameworks. It's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. Asking the right questions can help you choose the best risk management framework for your industry's compliance standards. Some important questions your security team should answer are, what standards, rules, and requirements apply to our industry? This is one of the largest factors that drives most regulatory coverage. What kind of data do we plan to work with? Do we work with PHI, PII, or financial and credit data? And which geographies and jurisdictions do we operate? This is very important for sovereignty requirements, data movement, and processing and control responsibilities. In addition to these questions, you could also ask, do we plan to work with governments? If so, which ones? Will these workloads be in the cloud, on-premises, or mixed? Let's explore a workplace scenario to understand the process of applying specific requirements for your industry and organizational needs. Imagine you are part of the cloud security team for a large statewide healthcare provider. The organization handles PHI, takes electronic payments, and works with insurance companies and federal health insurance. In this scenario, if your organization is determined to be a covered entity by HIPAA, your team will be obliged to follow all HIPAA laws for handling PHI. Some states create additional healthcare laws, so the team will also want to follow any statewide laws and regulations based on location. Your team can use a framework to map controls for those laws. Your team will also want to consider how payments are handled, like patient copays at the office. Critical thinking is not always listed as a qualification on a job listing, but it's a highly valuable skill to a lot of employers. When you know the specific regulations and standards associated with your industry, you can get answers to the right questions. These answers will help your team choose the right frameworks and controls. As a cloud security professional, you'll usually have to review assets and verify they meet the standards and frameworks. You'll also need to be able to describe what you notice in terms of your organization's compliance objectives. In this video, we'll explore the standards and frameworks and discuss how they can help you in your career as a cloud security professional. It's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. The Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, or PCI DSS, is a widely accepted set of policies and procedures intended to optimize the security of credit, debit, and cash card transactions. PCI DSS also protects cardholders against misuse of their personal information. The PCI Security Standards Council, also known as PCI SSC, was created in September of 2006 to address the changing security standards in the payment card industry, or PCI. It is an independent body created by major payment card brands focused on improving transaction security. The PSI SSC set the standards for payment security. Then, payment card brands may require merchants to follow these standards to maintain compliance. Keep in mind, the payment brands are responsible for enforcing PCI DSS compliance, not the PCI Council. The PCI DSS applies to any organization that accepts, transmits, or stores any cardholder data, regardless of the size of the organization or the number of transactions. All merchants will fall into one of 4 merchant levels based on transaction volume over a 12-month period. Each level determines the security and audit scope required to remain compliant. These levels are set by payment card brands and so may differ from each other. These levels are not set by PCI SSC. Let's dive into each of these levels. Level 1 applies to merchants that process over 6 million card transactions per year by any method, including online, in-store, or by phone. Level 2 applies to merchants that process 1 to 6 million card transactions per year. Level 3 applies to merchants that process 20,000 to 1 million e-commerce transactions per year. E-commerce transactions are transactions related to buying and selling goods online. Finally, Level 4 applies to merchants processing fewer than 20,000 e-commerce transactions per year, and any other merchant processing up to 1 million card transactions per year. There are 3 ongoing steps a cloud security team follows to adhere to the PCI DSS. First, assess means to identify all locations of cardholder data and analyze processes and IT assets for vulnerabilities that could expose cardholder data. Second, repair means to fix the identified vulnerabilities. You can do this by securely removing any unnecessary cardholder data and implementing secure business processes. And third, report means to document assessment and remediation details and submit compliance reports to the bank and card brands you do business with. Along with the PCI DSS, you'll also need to be familiar with the ISO 27001 framework. Remember, the ISO 27001 is an international framework that focuses on information security management systems. The 3 aspects of information security in ISO 27001 are confidentiality, information integrity, and the availability of data. This is also known as the CIA triad. Confidentiality means that only authorized people can access the information held by the organization. An example of confidentiality risk is a threat actor gaining unauthorized access to client logon details and selling them online. Information integrity means that data within an organization is not erased or damaged, but instead reliably stored and not changed without authorization. A risk to information integrity might be a staff member that accidentally deletes some content in a file. Lastly, availability of data means that an organization and its authorized clients can access information whenever they need to. This ensures the organization meets business needs and user expectations. Availability of data could be put at risk if a database goes offline due to server problems and insufficient backup. Knowing about PCI DSS compliance, ISO 27001, and the CIA triad will help you implement these standards and frameworks for workloads within your organization. Congratulations! You made it through another section of this course, and you've learned so much since you started. You're doing an amazing job. In our time together, you learned about common risk management frameworks like NIST CSF and ISO 27001 and their similarities and differences. Then, you learned about data privacy and data protection and how they're different. We covered common laws, regulations, and industry standards for data privacy and protection like HIPAA and GDPR. Next, you defined and analyzed industry regulations and laws for data protection and privacy. You reviewed laws that apply to certain industries like FedRAMP for the U.S. federal government and HIPAA for U.S. healthcare. You also considered local regulations like GDPR for the EU and CPRA for California. Finally, you dove deeper into the industry standards. Remember, it's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. I think you've got what it takes to protect and manage an organization's data. You've got this. Welcome. It's great to have you here. In this section, you'll get an overview of the compliance lifecycle and learn why lifecycle is important to risk management. You'll also learn how to use tools and techniques to meet compliance and maintain a strong security posture. You'll begin this section with a comprehensive overview of the compliance lifecycle and control mapping, where you'll learn what control mapping is and how to implement it to meet compliance obligations. Next up is cloud assessments and auditing. You'll get to check out the benefits and challenges of an audit. You'll also learn how to prepare for an audit and how to remediate audit findings for security and compliance. After that, you'll explore inherited controls and how to use policy control hierarchy to secure the cloud and align with regulatory requirements. Finally, you'll analyze the negative organizational impacts of noncompliance and learn how to implement PAC or policy as code. You'll also learn how to write policy as code updates to improve and strengthen organizational policies. I'm excited that you're taking this learning journey with me. Whenever you're ready, move on to the next video.
Right now, a lot of organizations are trying to figure out how they're going to deal with artificial intelligence. I spend a lot of time helping people think through how to think about applying security to these new sets of technologies. What's the same and what's different and new, and how we want to apply security principles and practices to those technologies. My name is Bill, and I am a security advisor in the Office of the Chief Information Security Officer here at Google Cloud. My job is fundamentally about unblocking people from a security challenge or a business challenge for which security is a concern or some sort of risk. It feels pretty awesome. It feels, like I'm actually contributing to the success of a business, to a customer. It's satisfying for me to feel like I'm of service to a person in that, trying to solve a difficult, vexing problem. I got started in the security field in 2003. And yes, that is 20 years ago. And the field's changed quite a bit in that period of time. But I was at that time running a consulting practice that worked with healthcare customers. It was really at that time that we had kind of experienced a whole series of new kinds of security threats. I was working with a colleague of mine, Rob, who looked at me one day and he said, "Hey, what do you do when there's a burning fire?" And he goes, "It's obvious. You run to it and put the fire out." And he said, "This is a security fire. We need to go in and help put out the fire." And so he and I and a number of others pivoted and joined a lot of the security efforts that were going on at the company at that time, and had to get up to speed on security very quickly. Almost all of my work is based on cloud technologies. Every customer that I talk with is working on cloud. Cloud is again, another form of technology, and with it comes a set of security capabilities and sets of security controls that have to be applied. It requires thinking through the security challenges and the kinds of risks that you face and applying kind of a security mindset to whatever it is that you're doing on cloud. Security is a critical capability that we're going to need in cloud. We need people who can help manage security risk. Yes, it's some pretty cool technology we get to play with. There's some really interesting challenges and puzzles, but there's also a larger social good here, I think. We safeguard what people do every day. And we make it be a trusted space for people to do banking and healthcare, to line up babysitters, to do all kinds of different things in their lives. And, what we're doing is fundamental to a trusted world. And I think that we need people who are going to be committed to doing that work. So come join us.
The cloud environment is constantly changing, which can make implementing compliance requirements challenging, but it's extremely important for organizational success. It helps introduce businesses to new clients and markets, raise customer trust and satisfaction, improve security posture, and save money. Who wouldn't want that? It's critical for any organization using the cloud to understand and implement the compliance lifecycle. The compliance lifecycle is the process for ensuring compliance objectives are met and maintained to support the business goals. It's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. Let's check out the 4 stages of the compliance lifecycle. According to ISO 27001, the 4 stages of the compliance lifecycle are plan, implement, monitor, and report. The compliance lifecycle is a continuous lifecycle to help organizations comply with frameworks, industry standards, and internal organizational systems. The lifecycle also provides the governance to maintain a continuous compliance posture. NIST defines governance as the policies, procedures, and processes to manage and monitor an organization's regulatory, legal, risk, environmental, and operational requirements that inform the management of cybersecurity risk. Generally, the governance model informs frameworks, standards, and laws for an organization. After you plan, implement, monitor, and report, and finish the lifecycle begins again. The findings in the report will affect the next cycle's plans. Overall, the goal of the compliance lifecycle is to meet compliance requirements or control objectives. Once met, the organization needs to demonstrate and maintain compliance with these requirements and objectives. Let's examine the first stage of the lifecycle more closely. During the planning stage, you'll identify compliance obligations for your organization and assess how you will meet these obligations. The planning process might involve evaluating controls, assets, and processes that are already in place. This stage often involves a gap assessment, A gap assessment identifies the processes and controls that currently meet the organization's obligations and the areas that need to be addressed. The findings of the gap assessment will drive implementation actions. Monitor, the third stage, comes after implementation. It is important to monitor the system to evaluate the effectiveness of the controls that were put into place. The final stage is report. In this stage, your organization must measure compliance by running reports and control checks. These reports are evidence that security measures have been implemented and vulnerabilities have been remediated. Often, the resulting reports are submitted to auditors as proof of compliance. Now that you and your organization have done the hard work of regulatory and industry standard compliance, you must maintain a robust and compliant security posture. This is done by starting the lifecycle once again. Continually moving through the compliance lifecycle will help ensure that your organization maintains its compliance posture. The compliance lifecycle is never finished. It's a continuous effort that's required to keep the organization and its customers protected. As a cloud security professional, you'll work closely with different types of controls in your day-to-day tasks to keep your cloud environment secure. Let's explore common types of cloud security controls, including preventative, detective, and corrective controls. It's important to remember that there are different levels of security controls. Let's explore this more. Security controls used at the service level are applied to storage, computing, and networking. Security controls used at the workload level are applied to a collection of resources or code that delivers business value, like a customer-facing application. In a workload view, there is a set of services and a flow of data through a system to achieve an outcome. Security controls used at the platform level are applied to a common environment for running applications, like operating systems, programming languages, and runtime environments. Security control architecture and selection is driven by business needs. Although there are nearly unlimited cloud security controls, most cloud security controls fall into the following groups or domains: deterrent controls, which serve as a barrier to a potential attacker; preventative controls, which manage, strengthen, and protect assets; corrective controls, which reduce the after effects of an attack; and detective controls, which identify or detect an attack. A deterrent control makes the effort of an attack greater than the reward. For example, a passphrase, which is more complex than a traditional password, is difficult and time-consuming to crack. The added difficulty may deter an attacker. Deterrent controls are like a sign on a building indicating it has an alarm. The sign acts as a deterrent and hopes an intruder will not even attempt to break in. What if an attack comes from inside the company? An example of a deterrent control against an insider attack is a company-wide policy stating the appropriate use of company assets and the consequences of non-adherence. Another control group is preventative controls, which are put into place to help prevent an attack. For example, you write code that disables unnecessary ports to ensure that there are less entry points for attackers, reducing the attack surface. Another way to reduce the attack surface and help prevent attacks is to maintain a strong user authentication system. Corrective controls are put in place to correct a change from the desired security posture. For example, a corrective control could be a piece of code that corrects or repairs damage after unwanted or unauthorized activity and then notifies administrators of this action. Corrective controls are like an alarm that automatically calls the police in the event of an intrusion. The role of detective controls is to continually monitor the environment to identify when an attack or unexpected event is happening. Detective controls are similar to an alarm going off when motion or sound is detected inside a building. Antivirus software and network or service monitoring are examples of detective controls. Even billing reports are detective because they can show unusual computer activity. A compensating control is a control to mitigate a risk that cannot be fully addressed by the organization's existing security controls. Compensating controls are measures that make other controls more effective. For example, a lock on a door handle can be made more effective by adding a deadbolt lock for stronger security. Compensating controls are usually used when the organization is unable to implement a specific control because of technical or business constraints. Compensating controls can also be a part of a defense-in-depth strategy, where additional controls are added to compensate for gaps in other control coverage. The PCI Security Standards Council, or SSC, provides guidelines that are helpful for creating and implementing compensating controls. The criteria that compensating controls must fulfill are: it must meet the intent and rigor of the original requirement, the level of defense must be similar to that of the original required control, it addresses the remaining risk introduced because of non-fulfillment of the original requirement. and the security level should be equal to or higher than the PCI DSS requirements. As a cloud security analyst, you'll need to be knowledgeable about the different types of security controls and how to implement them. Controls will help you to maintain a strong security posture for your organization. After identifying the types of security controls your organization needs, those controls have to be mapped. Mapping controls in the cloud is similar to ensuring the safety features on a product like a car or an appliance work. Then, if any features are missing, the organization fills in the gaps. Mapping controls in the cloud ensures that all the necessary controls meet regulatory obligations and secure the cloud. To complete the control mapping process, an organization must identify controls, map required controls to cloud security benchmarks, standards, requirements, regulations, and rules, identify the controls not mapped within the cloud security benchmark and respective policies, perform an assessment of platform and service, and implement guardrails with policy initiatives with native or third-party tooling. The first step in control mapping is to identify the controls that already exist in an organization's cloud infrastructure. Then, mapping a set of required controls to the current controls in place. Spreadsheets are often used in control mapping. When using a spreadsheet to map controls, choose appropriate control titles, domain categories, and descriptions to identify related controls. Then, conduct an inventory of all assets, including hardware, software, and data, and then group controls by type of asset. Be sure to align the purpose of each control to the framework that you are using. Note any gaps in the spreadsheet. After mapping, identify the controls that aren't mapped and assess which ones need to be implemented. During this step, you can also map additional sets of compliance obligations that apply to your organization. Mapping these obligations allow you to determine if there are controls that can be inherited from the prior control mappings that were carried out by your team. Control mapping is a valuable exercise to ensure control coverage across various compliance obligations. Next, it's time to perform a platform and service level assessment. Once you confirm your controls are fully mapped, gather any needed supporting information. Keep in mind, your organization may have a checklist to complete before the assessment is performed. Once the documents are ready, the IT team or supporting organization will review all provided information in an official platform assessment. This assessment will determine if the set of currently implemented controls meet all security and compliance requirements set by industry regulators. If there are gaps identified, you may need to develop more controls to close gaps and mitigate risk. Finally, implement guardrails using policy initiatives, using built-in or third-party tooling. Security guardrails are broad rules that prevent an insecure or not policy-aligned action, but guardrails are not as narrow and directed as policy rules. For example, developers might be allowed to launch services that cannot be exposed to the public internet. The control that prevents that exposure is the guardrail. Depending on your control objectives, you might need to create custom policy and code to meet regulatory requirements. The control mapping process not only helps familiarize you and your team with the current controls, but also helps you understand how these controls line up with regulatory requirements. By mapping controls, you'll be able to identify any missing controls or gaps and then adjust as needed. This process will mitigate risk and help avoid breaches and non-compliance. To ensure the safety of passengers on a bus, you would check that the tires, brakes, and other safety functions have been properly inspected and that the bus driver has a valid license. Similarly, if you're working with a business, you want to make sure that they're carrying out audits to ensure the proper security cloud controls are in place. An audit tests the cloud environment to ensure controls are in place to protect assets in the cloud. In this video, you'll take a deeper dive into what a cloud audit is and why they are important. A cloud audit is an assessment of the cloud environment that is usually conducted by a third party. It results in a set of findings that describe how well an organization is meeting the audit standards, and it also provides ideas for improvement. Audits generally take place every 6 to 12 months. Before the audit, auditors outline an audit plan. The audit plan includes the controls auditors will be evaluating for in the audit. During the audit, an auditor will gather evidence through inquiry, observation, reperformance, or analytics. The focus of a cloud audit is on the cloud security controls. Remember, security controls are safeguards designed to reduce specific security risks. The auditor will check for which security controls exist, whether these controls are implemented correctly, and whether they are working as required. The auditor will check for alignment with specific requirements based on regulations, industry standards, or security benchmarks. A key benefit of an audit is demonstrating appropriate protection or stewardship to earn and maintain customer trust. Another benefit is contractual compliance and insurability. An audit helps to build trust by establishing accountability for the implementation and operation of a set of intended controls. For example, an audit might require evidence of a third-party risk management process. The auditor will check that the system was designed and operates a program that includes that process. While audits have many advantages, they also come with some challenges. Two of the biggest challenges are time and resources. Audit preparation is time-consuming, so it's important to build processes that overlap with audit standards. Also, the third-party company that conducts the audit needs to be paid. Therefore, an organization needs to budget money for the audit process. When hiring an auditor, an organization must ensure the accreditation of the auditor. Without an accredited auditor, your organization will not be certified or receive an official SOC 2 letter. Additionally, an audit affects staffing, training, and causes an increased workload across the organization. This can cause slowdowns and business disruptions that can also cost the organization. The challenges can vary depending on the scale, scope, and complexity of the audit. Audits are essential parts of compliance. They secure integrity in data and assets and systems. Ultimately, when performed transparently, audits develop a deeper sense of trust between organizations and their customers. An audit is an important part of meeting compliance obligations and maintaining a strong and trustworthy security position. Imagine you're going to take a test. You probably want to know what's going to be covered and how to prepare, right? Being prepared will help you to learn the content and pass the test. The same is true for a cloud audit. Together, let's dive deeper into the specifics of what an audit usually covers, how it differs from an assessment, and audit best practices. To begin, let's identify what's commonly covered in a cloud audit: cloud security procedures and policies, access control, network segregation, data protection, logging and monitoring, and incident response are all included in a cloud audit. Please note that the audit approaches will vary based on the scale and complexity of the service being audited. Let's explore these steps in detail. The first step in a cloud audit is to inspect cloud security procedures and policies. The auditor will evaluate current cloud security policies. They will check that the organization knows how to assess risks in the cloud and has an effective way to manage those risks. The second step in the audit process is to assess access controls to ensure they are adequately implemented. Auditors will check access controls for strong password standards and policies, multi-factor authentication, privileged access management, and least privilege principle for all cloud assets. Third, auditors will check for proper network segregation. They search for evidence that networks are properly segregated in accordance with their expected standard as outlined in the audit plan. The fourth step is ensuring data protection. Auditors assess relevant security controls. They verify that data is encrypted at rest and in transit using effective cryptographic algorithms. Auditors also ensure that data loss prevention tools are in place. Fifth, auditors check logging and monitoring settings to verify that all required actions are logged. It's important to verify that the logs can't be changed, access to logs is limited, and that critical activities are monitored. Sixth and finally, auditors will verify that the organization is prepared to respond to incidents by reviewing the incident response processes. Auditors assess how an organization evaluates and improves security in response to completed incidents, known as postmortems. These are common steps in an audit, but remember, audit approaches vary based on the scale and complexity of the service being audited. As a security professional, it's important to know the difference between a security audit and a security assessment. A security audit can be internal or external and includes an evaluation of various areas of control. The intent of an internal audit is to provide the board audit committee and stakeholders, like the CFO, evidence that internal controls are appropriately applied. The purpose of an external audit may be to become certified in a standard, like ISO 27001. Another purpose could be to meet contractual or commercial obligations. Security assessments, however, are less complex. They only scan the company's technological systems and identify flaws. Security assessments usually consist of an automated scan to ensure that the controls are in place as intended. A security audit is a more objective and comprehensive evaluation than a security assessment. Now that you know what an auditor will be reviewing for, let's go over best practices to prepare for an audit. First, study the audit requirements and make a plan to pass the audit. Second, identify asset and control inventory, such as control mappings, components, connections, functionality, and the people accountable. Third, assess your cloud architecture. Cloud architecture can be public, private, hybrid, or multi-cloud. Fourth, be sure to identify points of contact to work with auditors and ensure their schedule has availability. Fifth, test run your own internal audit. This is where things get really interesting. The single best practice for audit preparation is to do an internal test audit using the exact testing criteria outlined in the audit plan. This will help you avoid control gaps critical to the audit or certification. Sixth, gather evidence and prepare reports on the existing security controls. The evidence and reports will be used by the auditors as one way to determine if standards have been met. Knowing what to expect during an audit will help you do everything you can to be prepared. Preparing for and taking part in the audit process will be a super important part of your job as a cloud security professional. It's another way you can protect users and organizational assets. Until around 2011, organizations using the cloud generally didn't know the security controls that cloud providers offered. Luckily, much has changed since then. Now, major cloud providers openly publish the controls they already have in place. These are called inherited controls. Because of this, it's important to understand how inherited cloud security controls relate to frameworks and compliance. It's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. Control inheritance is the process of using controls or compliance certifications and audits that are already provided by a cloud service provider. An organization can use inherited controls to meet their control requirements when using a cloud environment like Google Cloud. Because the controls are supplied by the cloud provider, they can be inherited or incorporated into the overall controls that an organization uses. The use of existing cloud service provider controls enables an organization to inherit them into their compliance process. Remember, organizations adhere to compliance standards. Compliance standards are typically established by their governing entities, both internal and external. If an organization cannot provide evidence of compliance, they may be held accountable. For example, an internal governing entity might be the board of directors or a company policy. Examples of external entities include regulators and customers that require compliance. Lack of internal compliance may result in a less secure cloud environment. Lack of external compliance may result in a failure to secure or retain a commercial relationship with a business or incur fines and penalties by a regulatory body. Frameworks are consensus agreements that outline the minimum acceptable level of security. They offer guidance and define scope. As a cloud security professional, you can use frameworks to help organize the security effort and help meet compliance objectives. Frameworks help you to evaluate and select appropriate controls, including inherited controls. A framework is a guide. It doesn't tell you what inherited controls a service provider will give you, but it will prompt you to ask your cloud provider the right questions. You can get the most out of your inherited controls by identifying alignment between compliance frameworks and cloud vendor inherited controls. Recognizing and adapting inherited controls to business requirements will enable you to achieve compliance within your organization. For example, if an organization is planning to offer protected health information, or PHI, handling services on the cloud, knowing that the cloud service provider is certified in a HIPAA-compliant framework allows the organization to build on their evidence of controls in the cloud platform. First, it's important to understand the business risks and legal requirements of your industry and organization. For example, healthcare or government organizations may have specific laws and requirements that you will need to comply with. It's also important to understand the business expectations that customers may place on your organization. Once you understand industry requirements, legal requirements, and commercial expectations, you can choose frameworks and/or compliance certification programs to help guide your cloud security team. By identifying the inherited controls that align with your chosen framework, your team can determine how you'll build or configure tools and services to meet business objectives. For example, imagine an organization plans to control and manage card user data. It would be a good idea for the organization to choose a cloud service provider that meets PCI DSS requirements. The organization will inherit those controls. The organization can use the cloud service provider's audited controls and may then add their own controls on top to achieve the full set of required controls. Using inherited controls and the controls that your team has put into place, you can secure assets and meet compliance obligations. Here's a pro tip before we go. Frameworks are tools to help you meet your security goals. They are not the end goal themselves. Resources in Google Cloud are arranged hierarchically, in the same way a plant species, like a grape tomato plant, inherits physical traits from other parent tomato species. Policies and controls established at the top level are applied down through the hierarchy. In other words, the grape tomato includes all genetic information its ancestor tomatoes had. And it's important for you to understand that cloud organizational structure hierarchy works the same way as it relates to policy and compliance. A hierarchy is a system that organizes or ranks things, usually by power or importance. In the cloud, hierarchies help engineers figure out how components are organized inside of their cloud account. They also enable the security team to put policies and controls into place within a business. Hierarchies offer more efficient and consistent management of controls. Let's take the hierarchy of Google Cloud as an example. Hierarchies in Google Cloud are arranged in organization, folder, and project levels. The top level in the hierarchy is organization. The next level under organization is folders. And the bottom level under folders is projects. Controls applied at higher levels in this structure cascade down. A business should first determine the organization level's policies. At this level, company-wide controls and policies can be set. These will then cascade down to all folders and all projects under organization. Within the organization, a company may have folders that align with departments like IT, finance, or HR. There might also be folders for other logical segments like global regions that apply to the business. Policies and controls can be set at folder level and apply to everything inside the folder. Also, each Google Cloud folder will have projects that could contain specific resources like an application and storage for that application. For example, there might be different projects assigned for development, testing, staging, and production. Each project can then have different rules, permissions, and controls. For example, there might be stricter rules on code deployment for staging and production projects. There's levels to understanding hierarchy in the cloud. Applying levels will help you create policies and controls at different levels to meet your control objectives. The hierarchy will also enable you to apply controls for different levels and different groups, making security faster and more efficient. Imagine a new driver is taking a road trip to visit a friend. A few miles into the trip, the driver forgot to stop at a stop sign. A police officer pulled the driver over and gave the driver a fine. Luckily, the driver didn't cause an accident, so wasn't sued for any liability. For organizations, fines and lawsuits are two common examples of the serious negative impacts of non-compliance in cloud security. Let's first review compliance. Compliance is the process of adhering to internal and external standards and government regulations. Simply put, compliance is following rules set by laws, regulations, policy, standards, or guidelines. If you set a rule, follow it, and demonstrate that you are following it. Then you're in compliance. But failure to follow standards and regulations results in non-compliance. Non-compliance is the failure to follow standards and regulations that are set by internal standards and policy or external laws and regulations. As a cloud security professional, you'll need to understand the importance of compliance and how to make sure the proper controls are in place to avoid negative impacts of non-compliance. Let's explore the most common organizational impacts of non-compliance. Negative organizational impacts include financial loss, legal risk, reputational loss, and talent loss. Let's first examine the financial risks of non-compliance. The cost of non-compliance can be significant. Regulators can fine or prevent organizations from conducting business. In addition to government fines and penalties, other financial impacts include lost business from failing to meet existing contract terms, not being able to win bids for new contracts, significant costs to remediate compliance audit findings, and delays in product releases and other business activities. An organization that is not in compliance may be subject to legal risks like imprisonment of its leaders, fines, and shareholder and customer lawsuits. Reputational risk can be equally harmful. Trust is key to business relations and growth. Losing trust from customers, shareholders, partners, and the general public can weaken or destroy a company's brand, and nobody wants that. Lastly, organizations that fail to comply with industry and regulatory standards will have a more difficult time keeping and recruiting new talent. Qualified people will seek out companies that are trustworthy. Without strong talent, the company risks falling behind on innovating and creating products. The risks we just explored affect the organization itself, but there are also negative impacts of non-compliance on customers, partners, and vendors. For example, in a healthcare organization, A compliance failure could cause a leak of protected health information, or PHI, to unauthorized parties. This not only has an impact on the organization, but also on the covered entity with which it has contracted. Covered entities include health plans, healthcare clearinghouses, and healthcare providers. Lastly, noncompliance will affect the patients whose data was compromised. As you progress in your journey to become a cloud security professional, you'll continue to learn about many tools and techniques that will help you comply with regulation and better protect assets in the cloud. Documentation is just as important as implementation. As a security professional, writing and updating policies that protect assets in the cloud will be an important part of your job. In this video, you'll learn how infrastructure and policy as code can help you mitigate risk and meet compliance obligations. In IT, a policy is any type of rule, condition, or instruction that governs operations or processes. A policy could be a rule that defines which conditions must be met for code to pass a security checkpoint and be deployed. It could also be a set of procedures that are executed automatically in response to a security event to limit damage and reestablish controls. Let's first review a related process: infrastructure as code. Infrastructure as code, or IAC, is the practice of automating and managing infrastructure using reusable scripts. There are many benefits to deploying IAC, like consistent configurations, decreased risk, application controls are clearly described in code, faster deployment, increased operational efficiency, and financial savings through less manual effort. When you apply IAC, you'll likely experience stronger security, faster incident recovery, and improved accountability. Let's discuss an important subset of IAC next. Policy as code, or PAC, is the use of code to define, manage, and automate policies, rules, and conditions using a high-level programming language. Using PAC is a straightforward way to automate policies across an organization. With a PAC approach, the compliance checks that you want to apply will be automated. You'll be able to write out policies using a programming language like Python, YAML, Rego, or use tools like Terraform, Chef, Puppet, and Ansible. The specific programming language depends on which PAC management and enforcement tools that you're using. You can then apply this code to different groups in the cloud hierarchy. PAC allows you to write continuous assessment checks against the infrastructure to determine that it's secure and compliant, and remains that way. There are many benefits to using PAC for security and compliance. Efficiency: a security team can share policies and automatically enforce them rather than manually. Speed: security team operations are faster when the team automatically enforces policies. Visibility: it's easier for all stakeholders to understand what's happening in the system. They can check the code rather than asking engineers or making assumptions. Collaboration: PAC provides a clear and uniform way of managing policies and so simplifies collaboration, not only within the same team, but also between different departments or teams. Accuracy: when a security team automatically enforces policies, there's less risk in making a mistake. Version control: if your team keeps track of policy files as they change, PAC makes it easy to revert to an earlier configuration if you run into a problem with a new policy. Testing and validation: with PAC, it's easier for a security team to utilize automated auditing software to check that the code is valid and doesn't have any gaps or errors. Using PAC enables teams to efficiently set policies and controls that protect assets and meet compliance obligations. Understanding how and when to use PAC will improve efficiency, speed, accuracy, and more when it comes to securing assets in the cloud. Congratulations, you're doing great. You've learned a lot about the compliance lifecycle and how to maintain a strong and compliant cloud infrastructure. As you progress through this section, you learned about the different aspects of the compliance lifecycle. You discovered how things like control mapping, audits, policy hierarchy, and policy as code can help organizations maintain a strong security posture and align with regulatory requirements, industry standards, and frameworks. First, you were provided with a comprehensive overview of the compliance lifecycle. You learned why the compliance lifecycle is so important to risk management and how to implement control mapping to fill gaps and meet compliance obligations using tools and techniques to maintain a strong organizational security posture. Next, you learned about cloud assessments and auditing and examined the benefits and challenges of an audit. You also learned and practiced how to prepare for an audit and how to remediate audit findings for security and compliance. Then, you explored inherited controls and learned how to use policy control hierarchy to secure the cloud and align with regulatory requirements. Lastly, you analyzed the negative organizational impacts of noncompliance and how to implement policy as code, or PAC. You then learned how to write a PAC updates to improve and strengthen organizational policies. Great work on your progress so far. Pack your bags. It's time to move on. It's so great to have you here. Are you ready to learn more fascinating security concepts? I know I'm ready to help explain them. Together, we'll explore some tools for managing your organization's security posture in the cloud. As a cloud security professional, you may be responsible for securing thousands or even hundreds of thousands of assets in the cloud or a hybrid environment. In this section, you'll learn about the process of cloud security posture management, which includes taking inventory of cloud assets. You'll also learn how to identify risks and vulnerabilities and what steps to take to fix and prevent security issues. Here's what you'll learn. You'll start by reviewing some of the risk and vulnerability frameworks to explore multi-cloud cloud security posture management. You will also learn about key cloud tools and their uses for risk and compliance, and about cloud organizational policies and controls. Next, you'll explore multi-cloud cloud security posture management, or CSPM tools. These tools help you inventory your cloud assets and give you visibility into misconfigured assets and other vulnerabilities. You'll also learn how to use Google's Cloud Security Posture Management tool, Security Command Center, along with other tools used for multi-cloud and hybrid environments. Then, you'll find out about key cloud tools and their uses for risk and compliance. You'll also learn to evaluate your organization's security posture with Risk Manager and generate reports you can share with insurers to give them an accurate idea of the risk your organization carries. Finally, you'll discover organizational policies and controls to prevent violations before they occur, and learn how to ensure your cloud environment is secure and your organization stays in compliance. Let's get started. I'll meet you in the next video. Knowing what to watch for will make you more effective in the security world. As a cloud security professional, you'll need to stay up to date on vulnerabilities and threats. In this video, you'll learn about the specific types of organizations that work to identify, research, and classify vulnerabilities, and how those organizations share the information with the public. MITRE is a not-for-profit organization that conducts research to support government agencies in several fields, including cybersecurity. MITRE created and maintains a standard naming system for vulnerabilities called the Common Vulnerability Enumeration, or CVE system. MITRE assigns an identifier including the letters CVE, the year, and a unique number to each vulnerability. These identifiers make it easier to share information about vulnerabilities. The National Vulnerability Database, or NVD, is a publicly accessible repository of data about known system and software vulnerabilities created and updated by the National Institute for Standards and Technology, or NIST. The NVD is updated regularly with information from researchers, vendors, and other security organizations. There are many uses for the NVD, including vulnerability management, security management, and compliance. The vulnerabilities in the NVD are categorized based on their unique CVE numbers. The NVD also contains information about vulnerabilities' severity, whether fixes or patches have been created to address them, and how much potential they have to affect systems. The Open Web Application Security Project, or OWASP, is a foundation that creates guidelines and frameworks for securing software. The OWASP Top 10 is a regularly updated report of critical security risks for web applications. OWASP created the Top 10 by researching common risks that make it easier for attackers to target web applications, like misconfigured security settings or insecurely designed applications. Cloud security analysts use Top 10 to guide their security testing efforts, minimize vulnerabilities in cloud environments, and assess risks. A lot of web application firewalls are designed to address Top 10 vulnerabilities. Now that you understand more about how vulnerabilities are classified, you're ready to stay up to date on the latest updates throughout your cloud security career. Stay curious and be open to learning new things. As a cloud security professional, you might work with anywhere from a few to hundreds of thousands of projects, virtual machines, containers, and other assets. That's a wide range of possibilities. With so many possibilities, your organization may choose to use a multi-cloud environment. Multi-cloud is a strategy using more than one cloud service provider. In a multi-cloud environment, it's extra important to have an effective monitoring system to track your organization's security posture and alert you to threats as quickly as possible. Cloud Security Posture Management, or CSPM, is the process of monitoring and configuring cloud assets for security and compliance with best practices, regulations, and organization policy. CSPM tools automatically scan cloud assets and alert security teams if a potential issue is found. Using multiple cloud service providers helps organizations take advantage of different cloud providers' strengths and capabilities and avoid concentrating all their business with one cloud provider. Keeping track of assets spread across multiple clouds and managing access and identities can be difficult. Luckily, there are strategies to mitigate these challenges. Multi-cloud security posture management, or CSPM, is the process of assessing the security of assets throughout a multi-cloud environment. CSPM provides a centralized place to ensure the right policy actions and controls are in effect and alert you to events within the multi-cloud environment. They also help keep the whole environment secure and in line with compliance standards. For example, CSPM tools can also automate threat response by automatically isolating assets that may have been compromised until the security team has a chance to address them. A wide variety of multi-cloud CSPM tools are available, each with different features, integrations, and underlying technologies. Organizations should consider all these factors to find the best fit for their requirements. Let's explore the following multi-cloud CSPM tools and why an organization might choose each one. Palo Alto Prisma Cloud, CrowdStrike Falcon Cloud, Orca, Checkpoint Cloud Guard, and Netskope Cloud Security Platform. Palo Alto Prisma Cloud is a cloud-native application protection platform, or CNAPP. Prisma Cloud secures cloud-native applications through the stages of the development process. Prisma Cloud works by taking in configuration data, user activity, and network traffic from across an organization's cloud environments. Using this data, Palo Alto Prisma Cloud provides visibility across the hybrid or multi-cloud environment. It also provides security assessments and compliance monitoring. Prisma Cloud can also integrate with external services to help provide remediation. For example, it can automatically check if patches are available for a vulnerability. Finally, Prisma Cloud provides identity and access management, or IAM capabilities, to help your organization maintain least privilege access. Next, CrowdStrike Falcon Cloud is a cloud-native endpoint protection platform. It's designed to protect endpoints, including desktops and laptops, servers, and virtual machines. Falcon Cloud provides multi-cloud or hybrid visibility into an organization's IT architecture. Like other CSPMs, Falcon Cloud uses threat intelligence to detect potential threats in an organization's cloud assets. Falcon Cloud also uses machine learning, or ML, and artificial intelligence, or AI threat detection algorithms to analyze activity and respond to potentially malicious behavior in real time. Other multi-cloud CSPMs include Orca, which uses an agentless approach, meaning it doesn't require installation of additional software on systems. Orca scans cloud workloads and identities and provides visual graphs of potential attack paths. Another agentless CSPM, Checkpoint Cloud Guard, uses rules and queries written in a unique, human-readable syntax called governance specification language. And finally, the Netskope Cloud Security Platform is a CSPM tool that has a unique focus on data security and data loss prevention. That wraps up our discussion of cloud security posture management. You're one step closer to keeping your organization's multi-cloud infrastructure safe and secure. Imagine you're on a hike and you want to do some bird watching, but then you remember that you forgot your binoculars at home. That might make it hard to observe the birds up close, right? Similarly, in security, tools are an important way to monitor threats. Let's take a moment to review Google Cloud's CSPM, which a cloud security team can use in multi-cloud environments. Security Command Center, or SCC, is Google Cloud's centralized vulnerability and threat reporting service with CSPM features. Security Command Center scans your organization's cloud infrastructure, helping you prevent, detect, investigate, and respond to threats throughout your organization's cloud environment. SCC also helps you maintain your compliance with security standards, like the Center for Information Security, or CIS, Google Cloud Computing Foundation's benchmark, a set of secure configuration guidelines for Google Cloud environments. Let's take a peek at some SCC features that will be useful to you as a cloud security analyst. On its main dashboard, SCC gives you a comprehensive overview of your organization's cloud assets from a security point of view. You can use SCC's Assets feature to carry out an asset inventory review to help you discover and view your resources and policies in near real time. This tool also provides asset tracking so you can identify new, modified, or deleted assets. SCC can also be configured to send the security team real-time notifications when an asset or policy is modified so you can determine whether it was an authorized change. Along with helping you keep track of cloud assets, SCC scans for vulnerabilities using two main built-in services. The first is the Security Health Analytics Service, which can identify misconfigured virtual machines, containers, networks, storage buckets, and IAM policies. This service also helps detect vulnerabilities. And second is the Web Security Scanner Service, which automatically detects vulnerabilities in App Engine, Google Kubernetes Engine, or GKE, and Compute Engine applications. Web Security Scanner provides two main types of vulnerability scanning: managed scans and custom scans. Managed scans are configured and managed by SCC and manage basic vulnerability detection for projects across the organization. You can configure custom scans to provide more granular information about vulnerabilities in individual projects. Along with identifying vulnerabilities, SCC scans for threats and compliance issues within your cloud environment. The Event Threat Detection Service scans your cloud logging stream for potential threats based on threat intelligence features or information about known or potential threats. The Container Threat Detection Service scans for potential compromises of GKE containers. The Virtual Machine Threat Detection Service scans for potentially malicious applications running in virtual machines or VMs or Compute Engine. If a threat is found, SCC provides information about related events like the event type, the event time the threat occurred, the event data source, and the event severity. Besides monitoring cloud resources for threats and vulnerabilities, SCC can be used to assess your organization's compliance. The Compliance Dashboard checks your cloud environment settings for violations of certain compliance frameworks. It recommends fixes for any violations found. The dashboard also exports compliance reports based on the framework you chose. SCC also integrates with other data sources to provide more details about your cloud security posture. For example, Cloud Armor analyzes traffic to help protect cloud assets from DDoS and common OWASP attacks. Sensitive Data Protection scans storage buckets and databases for sensitive and regulated data and provides recommendations to secure it. Also, SCC partners have solutions available to help you integrate data from SCC into your organization's security portfolio. SCC is available in two tiers: standard or no cost, and premium. The standard tier provides security health analytics, including identifying high-severity threat detection. The premium tier builds on the functionality of the standard tier, including the Security Health Analytics Service, with the addition of PCI and CIS benchmark reporting support. The premium tier also includes Web Security Scanner, along with Event Threat Detection, Container Threat Detection, and VM Threat Detection. Now that you understand more about Google SCC or your cloud data security binoculars, you're ready to secure your organization's cloud environment. Dealing with sensitive information requires a strategic approach. As a cloud security professional, you may be responsible for securing sensitive data using the compliance framework or frameworks that apply to your organization. In this video, we'll explore how you can use cloud tools to help manage risk. It's important to call out, our discussion in this course should not be considered legal advice. There are a few tools included in the Google Security Command Center, or SCC, that you can use to improve your organization's security posture and compliance. For example, Risk Manager is a risk assessment and management service within Google Cloud SCC. Risk Manager integrates with security tools to help you coordinate your security efforts. It also generates risk reports that you can share with insurers as part of the cyber insurance purchase process. Risk Manager reports include information aggregated from SCC, Cloud Asset Inventory, and other sources. These reports align with the Center for Information Security, or CIS, Google Cloud Computing Foundation's benchmark. This benchmark is a set of secure configuration guidelines for Google Cloud environments. You can generate Risk Manager reports as needed or schedule them to automatically generate every day, week, or month. Your organization can also use Risk Manager in the purchase process for cyber insurance, a type of insurance policy that helps cover expenses from cyber attacks or data breaches. Cyber insurance can help your organization recover from a cybersecurity-related disruption to its business operations. When it's time for your organization to purchase cyber insurance, you can send Risk Manager reports directly to cyber insurance carriers that are part of the Risk Protection Program from the Google Cloud Console. Risk Manager reports give the insurer an accurate idea of how much risk your company faces so you don't buy too much or too little coverage. Policy Analyzer is another security tool within SCC. Policy Analyzer reviews your identity and access management policies, or IAM. Policy Analyzer lets you know which users, service accounts, and domains can access which cloud resources, and helps you achieve least privilege access. Policy Analyzer provides role-binding reports. Role-binding reports include sets of one or more members and identities, known as principals, who have a permission or role granted by the cloud security team. And role bindings may include conditions which determine whether to grant a request. To use Policy Analyzer, you'll need to create an analysis query. You can then search by one or more role binding characteristics using analysis query fields. These fields include principals, or whose access you want to check, access, including permissions and roles, the resources you want to check access to, and condition context. You'll also need to specify the analysis scope, which includes the organization, project, or folder that you'll analyze. Policy Analyzer will return all the role bindings within the scope that match your search. Policy Analyzer also lets you write analysis query results to BigQuery or cloud storage. Another cloud compliance tool, Assured Workloads, is a tool that manages the security and compliance of Google Cloud workloads. It offers predefined controls and configurations that meet the compliance requirements of regulated industries like healthcare and government. Simply choose the compliance program that applies to your organization, and Assured Workloads will apply the controls you require. Assured Workloads also provides data residency controls at rest or in use. If your compliance obligations require you to store data in certain geographic locations, Assured Workloads automatically restricts data storage to the regions you designate. Assured Workloads personnel data access controls help make sure only authorized Google personnel can access your data. Authorized personnel can include people within the physical area of your compliance program and who satisfy the required background checks. By default, Google Cloud provides encryption of data at rest and in transit using default encryption key management settings. Pro tip, you can use customer-managed encryption keys if you need more control over the keys to encrypt data at rest. You can also use these keys if your compliance requirements don't allow you to take advantage of Google's default encryption of data. Assured Workloads also provides monitoring and alerts to organization policy changes that break compliance. Assured Workloads can also work with multiple compliance programs for multinational organizations or others that fall under more than one compliance framework. Now that you've discovered the security posture tools within SCC, you're well on your way to managing risks in Google Cloud environments. Organizations buy insurance policies as a common practice to protect their buildings and people from unforeseen events. You might not imagine a business can also buy insurance to protect their technology, but they can. In this video, you'll learn about applying for cyber insurance using Google's Risk Protection Program. Cyber insurance is a type of policy that covers businesses against financial losses resulting from cyber incidents. Cyber insurance offers a number of benefits. For example, if an organization is hit with a cyber attack that keeps it from doing business for a few days, cyber insurance helps to cover the lost revenue. The insurance may also help recover any lost data and replace damaged equipment. It also will provide an investigation into how the incident occurred and cover any legal and regulatory fees. Lots of organizations require that their business partners have cyber insurance in place as part of their risk management plan. Though cyber insurance is often required, it comes with its own set of challenges. Buying cyber insurance can be challenging because it's usually seen as difficult to underwrite. Underwriting is an insurer's process of pricing an insurance policy. The first challenge is that cyber insurance can be expensive and difficult to get. Through the underwriting process, the insurance carrier decides on a fair price to charge the customer to cover a potential loss. Another challenge is that cyber insurance underwriting can be complicated, especially in cloud environments. There's not much information out there to help cyber insurance underwriters predict the likelihood of a breach or other incidents. One last challenge is that cyber insurance can also be difficult for organizations to get because of difficulties with loss prevention. Some experts disagree on the impacts of security controls and on the best strategies for preventing cybersecurity losses. This makes it difficult for the insurance companies to decide whether they will insure an organization, how much the policy will cover, and what the cost will be. To help make this process easier, Google developed the Risk Protection Program, a solution that provides insurance carriers with information about an organization's level of risk. The Risk Protection Program sends data from Risk Manager directly to Google's insurance carrier partners to help make underwriting cyber insurance easier and more accurate. Here are the Risk Protection Program steps an organization follows to join the Risk Protection Program. First, the organization must generate a Risk Manager report. A Risk Manager report provides centralized recommendations an organization can use to minimize risk. After an organization's management approves the Risk Manager report, the organization then sends it to the insurance carrier. Next, the insurance carrier sends a specialized security questionnaire to the organization to fill in any details about the organization's security posture. The risk manager report and questionnaire lets the insurance company know that the organization has security controls in place to reduce their risk of a security event or lessen the loss if one does happen. The insurance carrier then uses this information to complete the underwriting process. Then, they send a quote back to the organization through a broker based on the amount of risk the organization carries. Cloud Protection Plus is a specialized insurance policy developed by Google in collaboration with insurance carriers and is available through the Risk Protection Plan. Cloud Protection Plus helps cover losses to the insured organization's computer systems or the critical IT systems of third-party IT providers. The policy is based on underwriting that recognizes the security posture and investments of both the insured and Google. Just like a business getting insurance for its building and employees, purchasing cyber insurance is an important part of an organization's risk management strategy. By learning the Risk Protection Program steps, you now know even more about keeping data in the cloud safe. Honeybees are known for their collaboration skills. Their success at ensuring the overall health of the hive relies on each bee doing their specific job. Similarly, as a cloud security professional, you, your teammates, and even external organizations sometimes rely on each other. Your success and their success depends on everyone doing their job. In this video, we'll explore shared fate, a model of how cloud service providers and their customers depend on each other to keep cloud assets secure. With on-premises computing, the responsibility for keeping assets safe is clear. Since the infrastructure is on-site, the organization's security team takes on all the control and responsibility for securing it. Managing responsibility gets more complicated with hybrid and cloud environments, where infrastructure is provided by cloud service providers, or CSPs. To support this, the shared responsibility model was developed to clarify the responsibility for securing cloud resources. It varies slightly between IaaS, SaaS, and PaaS environments, but the idea is similar between cloud models. Suppose you're working on a cloud security team and your organization recently became a CSP customer. Here's how your business relationship might work in a shared responsibility model. The CSP is responsible for the security of the cloud infrastructure and services they provide. This usually includes the security of physical servers and operating systems. The customer is responsible for securing resources in the cloud by configuring resources, managing IAM, and securing applications running in the cloud. The shared responsibility model helps define which tasks belong to customers and which belong to CSPs. But it places a clear boundary between the CSP and customer, which can lead to issues or misunderstandings. Under the shared responsibility model, users and CSPs may be unsure about who is responsible for certain tasks. Now back to your organization's new CSP contract, your team is ready to begin storing sensitive data with the CSP. Under the shared responsibility model, you, as the customer, may assume that no matter how you configure the service's settings, the CSP will keep your organization's data secure. But the CSP may assume that your organization owns the responsibility of configuring the service correctly. This creates the potential for your security team to misconfigure the service, leading to sensitive data exposure. Another issue with the shared responsibility model is that tasks may be assigned to someone who isn't the best fit to complete them. For example, your cloud security team may be unsure whether default settings on cloud products are right for the organization's needs. The shared fate model was designed as a new way of thinking about cloud security and helps determine how CSPs and customers should collaborate to manage risks. The shared fate model emphasizes that CSP's involvement in the customer's entire security journey and offers resources to securely manage their environment at each stage. Both the CSP and the customer share the responsibility of securing cloud infrastructure and resources. This model acknowledges that security issues affect both CSPs and customers and encourages them to work together. In a shared fate model, the CSP plays a more involved role throughout the customer's journey in the cloud. The CSP guides the customer and helps with the response if something goes wrong. The shared fate model also includes secure by default settings. This means that cloud resources come with robust security settings. If a customer wants to lessen security settings to meet their needs, the CSP will let them know how changing those configurations might affect their environment. In a shared fate model, the CSP makes advanced security features available to the customer and guides them through configuring these controls. The CSP regularly tests controls in place on their cloud services to make sure everything's working as it should. So, under the shared fate model, the CSP will accept the risks along with your organization as the customer. The CSP will also work to minimize the risk of their service being misconfigured. CSPs may also provide more secure default settings, give your data security team more guidance, and encrypt the data by default. These measures help keep your organization's data safe, even if your team accidentally misconfigures a setting. When CSPs and users collaborate using the shared fate model, they keep the cloud more secure than ever before. Keep buzzing along and work together to keep the cloud assets secure. As a security professional, you might be tasked with deciding how members of your organization can create and configure cloud resources. That's where cloud organizational policies come in. A cloud organizational policy is a set of restrictions or constraints on a specific cloud service or a list of services. Constraints restrict and control how you can configure cloud services and resources in your organization's environment. There are different policy options available depending on your organization's needs. Identity and Access Management, or IAM, focuses on who is allowed access to a resource. Organizational policy addresses what resource configurations are allowed in an organization or in a specific set of resources. Organizational policies can be set at resource hierarchy nodes, including the organization, folder, or project level. By default, assets in the hierarchy inherit the policies of resources above them. All new resources created under a resource hierarchy node with a constraint set on it conform to that constraint. You can also set organizational policies using tags. Tags let you define groups of resources throughout a hierarchy and assign constraints to all resources in that group. Organizational policies help prevent security violations from happening by restricting actions that pose security risks, similar to guardrails on a highway. The policies enable people in your organization to work more quickly and securely with the confidence that the security team has authorized their access. If a restricted action is attempted, it's recorded in an audit log and sent to the Security Command Center so that administrators can track restricted actions and follow up on any issues. Organizational policies let administrators enforce compliance at a higher level than IAM policies. Even in large-scale cloud environments with thousands of resources created every day, organizational policies can help achieve compliance by restricting resource actions that do not fit within standards. A well-designed organizational policy can also prove to your auditors that your organization is complying with applicable standards. And since organizational policies can prevent unnecessary resources from being created, they can be used to control costs. As I mentioned earlier, cloud organizational policy is a set of restrictions or constraints on a specific cloud service or a list of services. Now, let's dive in a little deeper and discuss two constraint types: list and Boolean. List constraints are rules that allow or disallow a set of values and are useful when you need to specify the characteristics of resources created within your environment. For example, you might choose to enforce a constraint that prevents both public and anonymous access to cloud storage data. This would result in all created cloud storage resources becoming accessible only by a set of trusted accounts from a predefined list of domains. When a user tries to configure a resource to provide access to accounts from domains not on the list, they'll receive an error code specifying which policy was violated, and the account access will not be permitted. Boolean constraints are constraints that are either enforced or not enforced for a resource. They govern a specific behavior and can be set to true or false. This is known as the disable automatic role. The disable automatic role is an example of a Boolean constraint because it grants access to default service accounts. Some cloud services automatically create default service accounts with the editor role. The editor role includes a large number of permissions and can pose a security risk if an account is compromised. Using the constraint disable automatic role grants to default service accounts, you can prevent new service accounts from automatically receiving the editor role when they're created. This lets you choose which permissions to grant to service accounts either manually or by adding additional constraints to your organizational policy. Using organizational policies, you can be confident that your cloud environment will stay secure and in compliance, even at a large scale. The more you know, the more of an asset you can be to your team, your coworkers, and your organization. As a cloud security professional, your knowledge of organizational policies will help your teams configure resources securely. A person famously coined the phrase, "A stitch in time saves 9." The meaning of this phrase is when you deal with the situation right away, it saves you time later. In this video, we'll explore Organization Policy Service, Google Cloud's tool for managing organization policies. As a cloud security professional, Organization Policy Service gives you centralized control over organization policies throughout your resource hierarchy, and it lets you choose resource configurations to allow and enforce in your cloud environment. When organizational policies are well defined, teams can work with confidence knowing they're in compliance with laws, best practices, and the organization's information security policy. Organizational policies apply to newly created organization, project, and folder resource hierarchy nodes. So resources automatically contribute to your organization's scalability. Whether you create a few dozen or a few thousand new resources, they'll all follow the organizational policies in place. You can get all the permissions needed to set constraints using Organization Policy Service by asking your administrator to grant you the Organization Policy Administrator role. You may also be able to achieve the permissions you need using custom roles. Once you have the required permissions, you'll be able to create, modify, and delete constraints. A constraint is a restriction against a Google Cloud service or a list of services. You can think of a constraint as a blueprint that defines what behaviors are controlled. Once you apply a constraint to an organization, folder, or project, the Google Cloud service mapped to the constraint will enforce the restrictions you've configured. Let's explore some constraints you can configure using Organization Policy Service. The Domain Restricted Sharing constraint limits the set of identities that can be used in Identity and Access Management, or IAM, policies. You can use this constraint to limit resources sharing to a specific Google domain or set of domains. Several constraints can be used to limit the use of IAM service accounts in your cloud environment. You can use the Disable Automatic Role Grants to Default Service Accounts constraint to keep default service accounts from automatically receiving the editor role. Other constraints that can help keep service accounts secure include Disable Service Account or SA Key Creation, Disable SA Key Upload, or Limit Lifetime of Service Account Keys. Making sure your organization policies surrounding service accounts are configured properly helps your organization follow the principle of least privilege by making sure accounts have only the access they need. You can use the Restrict Resource Locations constraint to set a list of physical locations where you will create new resources. Permitted resource locations can include multi-regions and zones. Multi-region locations examples are the USA and Europe, because they have more than one region, like specific cities or states. Regions contain zones, which are independent failure domains. For example, you may work in an organization that falls under data residency requirements. You can use a list constraint to specify the set of locations where cloud resources can be created and data can be stored. If someone in your organization attempts to create a resource in a location that isn't on the list, they'll get an error. The resource will not be created and the attempt will be logged. You can use Organization Policy Service to view all enforced policies and to edit policies after creating them. It's a good idea to review and evaluate your organization policies regularly and update them if needed, so they align with your organization's goals and structure. Organization Policy Service helps your organization address potential cloud security problems before they occur. Remember, putting the effort in now can help save you time later and keep your data secure. Who doesn't want that? Congratulations! You've made it to the end of the risk management section. You learned so many new security skills, including what tools and policies you can use to secure your organization's cloud assets and maintain compliance. Let's review. You began by exploring some security and compliance frameworks you can use to guide cybersecurity efforts and ensure cloud resources are compliant with laws and regulations. Then, you learned about Cloud Security Posture Management, or CSPM, tools. You also learned how Google Cloud Security Command Center can give you visibility into your cloud environment and help you to identify and manage risks. You then explored the advantages and capabilities of some common multi-cloud CSPM tools. Next, you reviewed the shared fate model of security and discovered how to use Google's risk protection program as part of your organization's cloud security approach. Finally, you explored using organizational policies and controls to prevent violations before they occur, and learned how to ensure your cloud environment is secure and your organization stays in compliance. Now that you've built a robust foundation in cloud security posture management, you can use it throughout your journey as a cloud security professional.
Hi, I'm Patrick.
And I'm Danielle.
Let's step into an interview that's in progress. In this interview, questions will cover cloud cybersecurity topics related to cloud risk management frameworks.
We hope this will help you as you prepare for your next interview.
Hey Danielle, what interests you in a career in cloud security?
Good question. I've always been someone that likes to go deep in order to understand something. I like to get to the nuts and bolts, the nitty gritty. If this is chemistry, I like to get to the atom. As I was learning about products and solutions, I found that I was diving into security compliance because security is a part of everything. It's a foundational aspect and it's a crucial aspect. It affects an organization, it can affect your personal life, it can make or break a sale. And so I found that in my quest to learn something and dive deep, I dove into security compliance, and I love it.
Why is cybersecurity compliance important, and what are some examples of risks that it addresses?
Cybersecurity compliance is important for a number of reasons. And the first thing that comes to mind is to do right by your customers. When I think of privacy laws like GDPR and CCPA, they're protecting the rights of individuals, and they require business to be upfront about how they're using customers' data, their personal data, name, social security number, addresses. And so it's in a business' best interest to gain the trust of their customers and lay that foundation. Another reason is penalties. A business can be fined and they can be found legally liable if they're not compliant. And then the last thing I would add is it opens up doors and opportunities to new sales, basically provide growth for your business. So I would say trust of your customers, penalties, and new revenue.
What is the difference between preventative, detective, and corrective controls, and what are some examples of each?
The difference between preventative, detective, and corrective controls is the purpose of each of them. I like to think of this as going to the doctor. So preventative care, going to your annual visit, you get your blood work done, you get your blood pressure, they ask you whether you're taking your vitamins. So preventative is making sure that you have the security controls in place to prevent a cyber attack from ever happening. Some examples of these are firewalls for networking, encryption for your data, and a last example would be identity and access management, which is often forgotten about. And it's making sure the right people have access to the right resources. So that's preventative. Detective is you're going to the doctor because you actually have symptoms. You have a cough, you have a headache, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. So detective is security controls that evaluate a security incident that has already happened or happening right now. And a great example of that are logging and monitoring tools and being alerted when there's suspicious activity. So using a SIM tool, for example. And the last one is corrective. So you've gone to the doctor, you have these symptoms, and they've diagnosed you. So how do we fix it? What medication do we give you? Do you need to have an operation? And so these are the remediation techniques that you can use. So do you have a disaster and recovery plan? Do you have a communication plan in place to go out to outbound customers and internal employees if there's a breach? Are you able to leverage a SOAR tool to have an automatic response? So I would say that is the difference between those three.
You might be asked to use tools to identify and remediate security risks in your role as a security professional. Why is that important, and can you give me some examples?
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about cybersecurity and the domain as a whole, compliance, but a big part of being a professional is being able to implement that knowledge through the use of tools. Tools are going to be what allows you to actually go in and identify the risk, mitigate it, and streamline and automate. One example that comes to mind, specifically within Google Cloud, is called Security Command Center. I like to think of it as a central hub for any security engineer to go in, have a single pane of glass of everything to do security-wise within their environment. Some of the things they can do are DLP, which is data loss prevention. So if there's sensitive data, they can mask it to make sure it doesn't get leaked. Another thing that you can leverage in Security Command Center is scanning for vulnerabilities within your web applications, and so much more.
That's all the questions I have for today. Now it's your turn to ask me any questions you might have.
Yeah, one question I would love to ask is, you're looking to find someone on your team that's a good fit. And I would love to know, when you think about your team for this year and you think about your priorities, what is a top priority for your team?
Well, this year, one of our main goals is that we have a portfolio of products that we are trying to get FedRAMP High compliant. And it's a huge effort.
Yeah, that's something I'd love to be a part of.
In this interview, Danielle demonstrated how to provide examples when answering questions. During the interview, you too can differentiate yourself by providing specific examples that show what you know and how you've used those different skills in different situations. Watch for more interview tips later on in this certificate.
Awesome work. You made it to the end of this course. I hope you've enjoyed learning about risk management strategies and frameworks in the cloud. My favorite part of working in cloud security is learning about the new and novel ways attackers gain unauthorized access to resources and systems. Identifying these threat vectors and creating detections or solutions to mitigate the threat is what gets me out of bed in the morning. My advice: dig into a specific topic, explore it until you reach a stopping point, build a solution to highlight your learning, and then show it off on the internet. Maintaining a portfolio of simple to complex projects is a highly valuable tool in showcasing your individual journey. Let's think back on everything you learned in this course. You started by exploring a general overview of security domains, policies, controls, and compliance. You learned about risk, security, and compliance, and investigated the relationship between 3 areas of compliance: people, process, and technology. You also practiced implementing security controls based on scenarios. Next, you explored risk management frameworks, laws, regulations, and industry standards. You also compared and contrasted data privacy and data protection. Then, you got a comprehensive overview of the compliance lifecycle. You explored controls and control mapping, assessments and auditing, negative organizational impacts of noncompliance, and policy as code, or PAC, and infrastructure as code, IAC. Finally, you build on your knowledge of risk and vulnerability frameworks to explore multi-cloud, cloud security posture management. You also learn about key cloud tools and their uses for risk and compliance, and about cloud organizational policies and controls. Congratulations on finishing this course. I'm excited for your next steps.